Hello, this is Paul McGann.
And this is Jake McGann.
And you're listening to
Traveling the Vortex.
Ding dong.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed episode number 267. The one where he goes on holiday in the country and things go dastardly wrong. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm glad.
How are you guys?
Wait,
I also turned it into a Friends episode, apparently.
I'm jumping ahead here.
The one where.
The one where.
I'm jumping ahead here, but
He should have gone to Spain.
I sat down at this.
Should have gone to Spain.
I sat down at the table knowing we were going to review this movie, and came to the table not thinking about what really is essentially the whole movie. And until you put it in perspective, it really is.
They go on holiday, and it is not a restful holiday.
No. All right.
Did you guys have a good week?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
Super Bowl was today, so
Yeah.
I watched that.
Wait, are we allowed to actually call it the Super Bowl? I know that's a big...
Yeah, you could say Super Bowl all you want. As long as you don't use the logo. The name of it is the Super Bowl. Everybody is super sensitive about it in media because they're afraid that the NFL is going to sue them. But you can say the word Super Bowl. You just can't call something a Super Bowl party.
Hey, NFL, I'm holding the logo, and I'm saying it. Are you ready? Here it comes. The Super Bowl. Come and sue me.
You won't get much.
Yeah.
Oh, God, they're here.
Not going to get anything out of this on this one.
He took my mic.
Still hear you.
Where are my pants?
Did it end shorter than most do? It seemed to get over earlier.
No, it was actually quite late. It was after 9.
They didn't invoke the mercy rule or something on this one?
Hey, it wasn't a runaway game. It's just Denver's defense was just really they showed up and played solid, and Carolina just couldn't hold on to the ball. They were passing all the time, which they had to because it couldn't be a running game against Denver's defense. There was just no possible way they could run the ball, so they were having to pass the ball, but then the receivers couldn't hold on to the dang ball. Anyway, it was sloppy as far as Carolina goes, but it wasn't a runaway game. I mean, I think for a long time it was within 3 points.
It was pretty close, yeah.
I think when Denver scored its last 2 touchdowns, that kind of distanced the ability, but that wasn't until early in the fourth quarter. So, no, Carolina they didn't show up. They just did not show up. It was not the same team that played 2 weeks ago. It was sad.
It was kind of like Denver last year. Just didn't show up. Yeah. It was not the same team that played all leading up to the Super Bowl.
I sometimes wonder if that week off doesn't.
I think it hurts.
Well, and there's
more
huge
than
pressure.
else.
I mean, it's the Super Bowl. The venue changes once you get to that level.
Yeah, I mean, on paper,
the pressure is so much higher.
It should be good because you're getting that extra week off to rest up. You're getting that extra week to kind of, if you've got any injured players, they can come back. It should be a good thing. And I have always thought to myself, I don't know that it is because that pressure cooker just builds all week long.
Yeah.
And then you get Sunday and you don't get to play because you got another week.
Yeah.
To just let it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, teams have bye weeks all the time, though. So you're just getting 2 this year. So
yeah, but still.
I don't know. It was. If Kansas City had been there, of course, if Kansas City had been there, Denver wouldn't have been there. So I would have hoped that Kansas City would have played as good as Denver did. I don't
what
like.
What you're saying is we would have won.
I don't like Denver. Yeah, probably. I don't like Denver. I've never liked Denver, and it's not just because I'm a Chiefs fan. I just have never cared for Denver. But that being said, when they won, knowing that this is Peyton Manning's last year, and there's something. Peyton Manning makes it harder for me to dislike Denver. I'll tell you that because I've always liked the guy, despite the fact that now he's embroiled in some sort of doping scandal. But I've always liked the guy, and so it's always made it harder. So knowing that and knowing that this was possibly his last game, because I almost guarantee he's going to announce retirement coming up here soon.
Especially now that he won.
But, yeah. So knowing that, I'm actually kind of glad that Denver won. But Not to mention the owner of the team died of a heart attack this year, right in the middle of the season.
I didn't know that.
So I think they won it for him. Pat, I don't remember his last name. His wife accepted the trophy tonight, which was kind of nice. But yeah, I mean, that surrounding it, I would have liked a closer game. I'd like to see Carolina play a lot better than they did. But
there were a couple good commercials.
They had some good commercials. Some of them were really weird, though.
Yeah.
The Doritos commercials were really weird. Well, one particular. And the halftime show, I really thought Beyonce and Bruno Mars just delivered at home, but Coldplay,
it seemed
I don't
like
remember the
they
lead
took up
singer's name, but he was
Chris
really weak.
Chris Martin. Seems like they took up a huge chunk of Coldplay's halftime show.
Well,
is that just me?
It's weird because they kept saying Coldplay is the feature, Coldplay's the feature, and it wasn't until this week that I heard that Beyonce and Bruno Mars were even going to be part of it.
I didn't even know until.
And so I was kind of surprised, but they did a little montage of past performances too during.
Yeah,
so that
I saw
was kind of
that was nice.
But, I don't know. It was okay.
We should get Michael Jackson back
for a 50th. Yeah, for a 50th, they did have a shot of him in the montage.
A couple of them.
Yeah, but for a 50th Super Bowl, I thought the halftime show was kind of lackluster.
I pretty much always think the halftime show is lackluster, but that's.
I thought the Stones, when they did it a few years back, was really solid, really solid. And I haven't thought the Stones have been good live in concert for years, but that was a solid show. McCartney was pretty good.
I've only been actually watching the Super Bowl more recently because Sarah's more interested in football than I am, so I humor her and let the game be on. I was organizing my iTunes library.
You guys are probably like my family. I'm sitting there watching the game, and when the commercial's on, everybody comes into the room and sits and watches. Now, I enjoy the commercials too, but as my family comes in there and they watch the commercials.
Yeah.
And then they all disperse.
I understand.
Well, it helps that Sarah's a big
Mason
Manning
actually
fan.
watched most of the game.
Did he really?
Yeah.
The big episode of the Sports Ball this week.
Yeah, but, yeah.
You seen that meme that they're going on about? So yeah, everybody's running around cosplaying. I hear tickets to the con are extravagant.
The ironic thing is you say sports ball, and this week's episode of Life in Pieces has a reference to that, but it's about tennis instead of football.
Well, I think that's the in my mind. I know that there's this thing where you can get the kind of geeks and sports nuts kind of tend to butt heads for some reason. I think it goes back to high school when there were jocks and geeks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, we're all varying degrees of sports fans here. There's a certain quality of or a contingent of the geek fandom that's like, the sports ball, that's that thing. And people are kind of offended by it because I think it's funny. I think it's a hysterical term because it does work for baseball or football or whatever happens to be on. Except for hockey. You can't really do sports ball when you're talking hockey. But I think it's hysterically funny. But I'm also coming at it with a foot in both worlds. That I can watch sports and have a good time with it. So
yeah,
maybe if I was just a geek, or if I was just a sports nut and not a Doctor Who fan, I would be offended by sports ball. I don't know. Hopefully, we've not offended anybody with our sports ball talk, which basically means me because nobody else has said it.
Sports fans have done a number of years of offending geeks, so I think it's okay. I think it's all right.
I think we'll live.
Sit and laugh and point as we show up at our conventions in our cosplay uniforms as they're standing there with their war paint and their jerseys on, decked to the nines, and their cheese heads on. I mean, it's like, seriously?
That would be the greatest cosplay ever, is we should go to Planet Comic-Con
as football players?
Football fans. We should go as Green Bay fans with the cheese heads.
Cheese heads you could probably get away with it as Raiders fans, and people think you were like dressed as fantasy characters.
I wondered about that when the security lockdown kind of came down on the NFL, because I've seen some of the Raiders guys that show up and they have
those real pointy shoulder pads.
They have legitimate like spikes.
Oh yeah,
and the World War I helmet with
the pike on the top.
It's like that guy's not getting anywhere near the building. The metal detector will go off before they. What are the Raiders fans going to do? I was genuinely upset for Raiders fans because it was like they have to have something.
I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm never genuinely upset for Raiders fans.
I'm a Chiefs fan too, but as a Chiefs fan, I think we've kind of gotten to the point where we can kind of feel sorry for them. You know,
you can relate a little bit.
Well, no, because
no, you can't relate.
You can't relate. But just.
They were a better team, maybe.
Here's the sad reality. I apologize, Raider Nation, if anybody's listening. They suck. They're
bad.
They're worse than the Chiefs, is what you're saying.
They actually did.
Dude, the Chiefs.
They actually did.
The Chiefs went all the way up to
this year, but last year and previous years, the Chiefs weren't so great.
Actually, if you look at the Chiefs record, it's a lot better than it seems to portray. The problem with the Chiefs is they can't get it together in the postseason or in the later half of the season. Oh, okay. This year they managed to do that. They flip-flopped it. They did poorly in the beginning of the season and did better in the second half of the season.
And it worked well for them, so hopefully we'll see more of that next year.
Well, I think if they're just consistent through the whole season,
it'd be even better.
Super Bowl.
Consistency would be nice.
Yeah.
But for everybody who talks about consistency, we got to go back to the Marty Schottenheimer years where we were very consistent and we won a lot of games and got into the playoffs and could not do anything ever. So, what's better? Do you want that shot at the ring, or do you want to be consistent?
I want them both.
Both would be nice. But to answer the previous question, consistency as a Raiders fan is disappointment, year in and year out, all the time.
So that if they have anything
on the
in
road
common,
and at home,
it's the fact that there's some consistency.
That's okay.
It's just unbearable, and I feel genuinely bad for the fans of that team because it's like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I'm so sorry, because it's like watching Detroit on Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, I'm sorry.
And Detroit was better this year too, though.
Now you can't wear your pike. So there's that. There was one really stellar commercial this year that I thought was just kind of head and shoulders above everything else.
The Prius commercials?
No, not the Prius commercials.
The Prius were my favorite.
I really like the Helen Mirren one.
Yeah, that was my other favorite one. And poignant and well done.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
No.
It's Helen Mirren, and
I
she's
didn't even watch the
sitting behind a table with a burger and fries and a Budweiser beer. And her point is that, you're pretty much an idiot if you drink and drive. And
just
coming from this proper British woman, it's like you feel like, okay, I'm never going to drink and drive again. I never have, but you're not going to. You feel bad and you've never done it before. I'll never do it, Ellen, I promise. And at the end, she ends it on an up note. So it's really good. It's really good. What was the one that you thought was the best commercial this year?
Film at 11. That was hands down.
You better give some context for those not into Pico.
We have to let the listeners
or Northeast
in on
Kansas,
that
rather.
I did not find out until my phone blew up during halftime. That
it was right before halftime.
It was
like
after
the break before.
It was during halftime, but right before the performance.
Yeah,
right. That apparently the commercial that I conceived of and wrote and inadvertently acted in. Apparently, while I knew they loved it, but I hadn't heard if they were actually going to pay to air it, and they apparently paid to air it. So it was local. I mean, a local Super Bowl spot for anybody in the Northeast Kansas viewing area. You may have seen me on your TV during the Super Bowl, and so I'm justifiably proud of that because it was the best thing ever. And I didn't.
Sean channeled his race dance.
There may be a longer version of the ad coming to a local TV set near you. They apparently we shot extra stuff just in case, and they're apparently so impressed with this one that there may be a campaign coming. With more,
that's really cool.
Even more Doc Brown and even more Ray and even more Batman. So
sweet.
But a big shout out to Dave and Blake and Marshall who came out and helped us out with that. So
you can find a better Doc Brown impersonator than Marshall. He already looks like Christopher
Lloyd.
Thank you.
You kept going to say Reeve, didn't you?
I almost did.
Heard it in your voice.
I almost said Reeve.
He doesn't look anything like Christopher Reeve.
Nope.
I don't know if I like this on my microphone. It looks Russian.
It's like a Russian hat.
It does. It looks like a little Russian hat. He's keeping his head warm.
What's in the news, Keith?
In the news, Moffat won and received his OBE.
Ooh.
You almost said one, didn't you?
I almost said one.
He was in the running against.
We mentioned that he was
Raiders.
going to get his OBE. And now he has been presented with it. Now, that doesn't make him a sir, right?
No,
That's what
you
we
have to be
established
knighted
last
to
time.
be a sir.
It's the next level.
Order of the British Empire.
Next level down, right?
No, because I think
it's two
because it's member, then order, then
Commander.
yeah. I'm not going.
We went through this one.
I'm not going to do this again.
Go back to
Yes,
that
it's
episode.
It's not a knighthood. Let's put it
Right.
that way.
And afterwards, he was talking with the Scottish Daily Record about getting the award, and they talked to him about leaving Doctor Who and what he's going to do beyond that. And he said, ahead of me this year, and I'm quoting here, I have 14 Doctor Who and 3 Sherlock films. So the last thing I'm doing is contemplating work beyond that. The reason you end up leaving Doctor Who, as much as we all love it, is because it's all year round. It's a really tough gig. So there's probably you've seen a lot of scuttle online that we're getting an extra episode.
for the mathematically challenged among us, because I had to stop and go, this is not new. Then all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, there's 12 episodes proper in a season and 1 Christmas special. That's 13. He said 14 episodes.
Unless he misspoke, which I'd be surprised. It seems to indicate that either it's going to be a 13-episode season, or he's going to do Christmas 2016.
I think he's doing Christmas
2017.
in 2017. I think is what's ultimately happening there. I think he'll get Christmas of 2016 because we've been promised that. Then he'll do 12 episodes of Doctor Who proper, and then he'll do the Christmas episode for 2017 as well.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that's probably the time that
Because they're touting
Capaldi will depart.
Yeah, if that news winds up being true, because it still has not been confirmed.
No, that's not official, so don't take me at the word there.
Grain of salt, grain of salt. And all the stuff about Chris Chibnall taking over has always been Series 11, 2018. Never mentioning anything about Christmas or 2017. So,
yeah.
So what do we think about? I just want to speculate for a moment.
What do we think about 14 episodes? Yay, more Doctor Who.
yeah, we're getting the episodes we were promised. I guess we weren't promised Christmas 2017, but it was pretty much assumed.
Hey,
well, we know we're at least getting 13.
What do we think about Capaldi leaving with Moffat versus sticking around for a season with Chibnall? I mean, it's not been spoken yet. I'm not. Just everybody seems to be indicating that he's on his way out. I hate to see him
go, but I think that it probably makes sense because that's what happened with Matt. He left when. I'm sorry. Yeah, he came when Tennant and Davis left. So
yeah, I mean, we are. If he sticks around, we're on uncharted territory because we haven't had a showrunner handoff with the Doctor in place since the new series came back.
Which is easy to say when we've only had 4 Doctors total in the new series.
And 2 showrunners.
Okay. In my head, I was going, no, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I want more Capaldi. So any excuse for that would be fine with me.
But on the other side of that coin, I would love to see what Big Finish could do with Capaldi.
You're looking way down the road. We're just now getting David Tennant. He's been off the show for 6 years.
I think Capaldi will. Let's get Capaldi quicker. Forget 10.
We're getting John Hurt right off the heels.
Yeah, look how quick that was.
2 years later, but yeah.
I don't know. If you were Chris Chibnall and you were coming into this, would you be just chomping at the bit to work with Capaldi, or would you be thinking to yourself, kind of ready to get? I mean, in either way, I would think it's a win for you because you don't necessarily have to hit the ground running with a new Doctor and have the pressure of that.
It'd be a little easier of a transition as a writer if you're working on a previously established Doctor.
I disagree. I think if you come in there and you got a fresh slate, it's a lot easier.
Well, but I mean,
the inconsistency would be more noticeable with a previous established Doctor.
If you're gonna have either way,
I think the name of this week's show is going to be consistency.
Well, I'm just saying, either way, you're going to write for a new Doctor, whether it's this year or next year. So I would think you'd want the opportunity to write for the sitting Doctor and have him leave versus the fresh slate.
See, I don't think so. I mean, I think that's the reason Moffat was happy to get a new actor because he had a clean slate to start over. I can't. If I were the next showrunner, not if I were Chris Chibnall, because I can't presume to tell you what Chris Chibnall.
I suppose that's true. He
but
may not like.
If I were the next showrunner, because I love Capaldi so much, I would want Capaldi to stick around and write for the Doctor. But I can see a showrunner saying, I'd like a clean slate and make it my own, because that's what, the last time this happened, that's what Moffat got. He had already written for two previous Doctors. He got to write for two previous Doctors. Then he got to start over and make the show his own. And I think that Chris Chibnall probably could be afforded that ability if Capaldi left the show. Now, I don't know that Capaldi's leaving the show, and I don't know that there's any truth to the whole rumor mill that Capaldi's leaving the show. It seems to me that it makes sense both ways.
It does.
How is that for being diplomatic?
Well, and one way to have it both ways is have Chibnall write something for season 10. Moffat's not going to write all of those episodes. He's still going to have other writers. So,
what was the last thing we decided Chibnall wrote?
He wrote The Power of Three.
That was the last thing.
Well, P.S., but yeah. That's
I love that
extra.
one.
Oh, that was Chibnall, yeah.
So that way he'd still get a
I
chance
did not
to write
answer
for
your
Capaldi.
question, Sean.
Just something I thought was interesting.
This angle? From this angle? You look like... No, from this angle. No. Oh! From the
Look at
side.
your microphone.
Profile.
This would be profile.
That's profile, yes. Thank you.
That's what I was
This
trying to
angle-
do.
Last time you said no at that.
You told me
This
no.
angle... No, you've shown me the back of your head earlier. You look like one
Oh,
of
you
those
went too
troll
far.
dolls. You know the ones that you do that. And they,
That's what I'm working on.
Should be a different color than black, though. He's headbanging. Okay.
what else is in the
Oh, now I'm
news?
dizzy.
Sorry about that.
Are you sure?
No.
Hang on, my computer's messing up.
Well, we're consistent.
There's going to be a full-length novel coming out, speaking of 10, and Donna, and The Big Finish, to coincide with that
Were we
release.
speaking about Big Finish?
I don't think we
I
were.
mentioned it.
Okay.
We mentioned the 10th Doctor,
Oh, yes, the audios. Yes.
the audios.
I think Keith just rolled in here and ran me over on his Segway.
Perhaps. But, hold on, I'm not done.
Go ahead.
There's going to be a full-length novel with Tin and Donna by Ginny Colgan. In the Blood is what it's called, and it will come out May 2016, so timed with the release of Time Reaver.
So Sean's going to put that on the schedule for
June.
June. Yeah, Keith says I want some time to read it. That's cool.
And
I
some
like
time to
that.
get it, since we don't,
I like more Ten
know
and
what
Donna.
they-
I've always enjoyed Ten and Donna. I thought they were quite an enjoyable pairing, and I'm excited to hear them in the Big Finish audios that are coming out. And now I'm excited to read another story with Ten and Donna.
And it's nice to see them dipping back and doing more new novels with past Doctors.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it a little bit with some of the classic Doctors, but it's still nice for those people who really love certain pairings that they can continue with those.
Well, and I think one of the things that was a little disheartening to me was a few years back when, and I understand why the BBC was doing it, but when we had the 9th Doctor and the 10th Doctor, it seemed like not all of the novels that were coming out were just new series Doctors. And I think that was to bolster the...
Well, and it was in time with...
I think it was
Yeah.
I think it was to bolster the attention to the series and make sure that, especially new viewers and people that were coming to Doctor Who new had a wealth of material in order to get to know these Doctors and these characters. As of recent, and by that I mean the last 3-4 years, they've actually been, like as you said, dipped back into the classic
Especially
Doctors.
around the 50th.
Started writing other novels, which has been really, really nice. And then so it'll be nice to dip back into some of the old new series Doctors,
Yeah.
in order to get that as well.
Which, the audio that it's time to release with, Ginny Colgan also wrote.
Oh, that's
So there might be a
excellent.
kind
I bet
of a
there's a
cool
tie. I
tie
bet there's at least a
together.
crossover. Yeah. What else you got for us, Keith?
The last bit is that there's going to be 7 re-releases of the Target novelizations, both in physical form and in digital format. So for you ebook people, these are books that...
He looked at me when he said that.
These are... And they're going to feature illustrations from original artist Chris Achilleos. They have
Pictures!
been
Yay!
previously out of print. And these books include Doctor Who and the Zarbi, Doctor Who and the Web of Fear, Doctor Who and the Dinosaur Invasion, Doctor Who and the Genesis of the Daleks, Doctor Who The Visitation, Doctor Who Vengeance on Varos, and Doctor Who Battlefield.
Why didn't you do Battlefield?
Battlefield?
Because it was the
work.
end.
Yeah.
It was a statement.
And not as many syllables.
Ah.
I owned all but 2 of those once upon a time. Well, I don't think I owned Zarbi.
That's nice because it's really difficult to get a hold of some of these novels, especially now that they're out of print. And a lot of times you have to go to your local used bookseller or you have to go to conventions and pick them up. And sometimes they're a little overpriced because they're out of print. And I'm not putting down somebody that's selling them at a convention. I mean, when it's a commodity and it's rare, you can charge a higher price and make some profit off of it. But it will be nice that these are coming back out, that BBC Books or whoever has the Target line and is able to reprint these books for those of us that didn't get to read them the first time around.
Web of Fear is excellent.
Well, I've seen the story.
Yeah, but the novelization is really good.
So the titles will be both physical and digital on April 28th, priced at £6.99. Digital editions will be $4.99. Followed, there will be hardback editions of the first 3 Doctor Who novels ever published: Doctor Who and the Daleks, Doctor Who and the Zarbi, and Doctor Who and the Crusaders on November 3rd for £10 each. So looking forward to those. If you didn't get some of those, which were in the 2012 first set of reissues, because I picked up the Crusaders then, and
I hope
that's
some
how
of
I'm
those.
reading these.
I hope some of those come over here and are printed and released in booksellers or publishers here, because
I hope so,
when they come in pounds, it always makes me wonder if we'll get some of those over here.
Yeah, and this is coming from a British source.
The nice thing about books is there's no format exchange, so
no
you can
region
You can buy it in the other nation or the other country, and have access to it here. So.
Yeah, I would be really surprised if they did not come over the same time.
Yeah, or near to.
Yeah, or very near to. That's it for the news. Our bit of feedback comes from Robert. Robert writes, Who, Netflix, and the BBC. Hey guys, first off, I like the look of the new contact page at the website. It looks much cleaner. Hope it works better than the last old page too. Us too, Robert. Us too. As to the streaming news, I have a couple of thoughts to bounce off of you and everyone else. For starters, I think the nature of Netflix itself is changing. It used to be where you could catch up on series and watch old favorites. Now it's trying to be more of a new content provider. Hulu is also dipping a toe in those waters. Then there's the CBS streaming service and the question around that once new Star Trek series launches there. Will the older series disappear from the services and only be on CBS All Access? That leads me to BBC's possible streaming service, and something I noticed before I sat down to write this. One discussion on a Who forum was about what shows aired on your local PBS station around Doctor Who. What I noticed is that, with the exception of the series that went to PBS Mystery or Masterpiece Theater, almost all BBC series have come to the United States piecemeal. It was up to individual TV stations and then a few individual cable channels to choose to air shows like Doctor Who. I think it's possible that this piecemeal approach wasn't helpful to the BBC or to certain shows. Doctor Who benefited from the sci-fi boom after Star Wars, but it wasn't the only genre the only genre show they aired before or during that time. Yet those other shows made it here Well, piecemeal, going to some stations but not others at various times, and so on. At that those shows never got the chance that Doctor Who did to that those shows never got the chance the Doctor Who did could represent some loss of income to the BBC in terms of video sales to the United States, had those shows taken off. Now, the BBC seems to be getting close to launching its own streaming service. It's interesting to me that what statements I've seen from them have mentioned making their programming available in the United States. This would be an easier way for Doctor Who fans to get new and classic series stories. It also might be a way for the BBC now and in the future to more easily reach the American market with their programming, and not have to rely on individual stations, cable channels, or streaming services. If this is figuring into the BBC's motivation, then it might be all for the best. I'm curious to see what happens with this service. I've been leaning towards buying a season pass at iTunes. I might not get episodes the night they air, but the next day. But I wouldn't get them with commercials. I'm trying to be more of a cord cutter, and right now Doctor Who is the one area that I'm having to look at. I suppose one good thing about no New Who in 2016 is that I have a year to make up my mind. I hope I've given you a little more food for thought. One last thing. I don't know what you're looking for the Eccleston edition of Beyond the Doctor, but I recall him being one of the heavies in Elizabeth with Cate Blanchett. It's a substantial role at that. Take care, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. I did not know he was in Elizabeth.
I do not remember him in Elizabeth. I know I've seen it. And I've always wanted to go back and watch Elizabeth the Golden Age and just haven't. So maybe that would be a good opportunity to do that.
It'll have to be one to keep in mind then.
Because I'm really pushing for, G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. But.
I'm going to veto that one.
I kind of shared I think that's well stated, Robert, and I kind of shared my thoughts on that last week as far as, I still think I maintain the idea, though, that the reason why we get a lot of new fans is because they find it on the various services, and I think
on Netflix
when you drill it all down to one service by the BBC, then you've limited your audience of Who fans. You limit your audience of to Who fans that are fans of Doctor Who. They're going to go to that service to get their Doctor Who, but you're going to lose the people that did come to it because they found it on Netflix or Hulu or the piecemeal services that were available. So I can see it both ways.
Someone interested in the show isn't as likely to sign up for a subscription service just to try it out.
Correct.
Granted, there's probably going to be a 30-day free trial. They tend to do that.
Likely, yeah.
Here's the danger that I see in this is that if this is the trend that everybody's moving toward, it almost in a way makes a case for cable. And I never thought that I would say that because I'm a cord cutter. I've gotten rid of it. But now, okay, CBS is going to have their service, which is where I can watch Star Trek, and BBC is going to have their service, which is where I can watch Doctor Who, and so-and-so is going to come along and say, well, we're going to put our service out here and give you blah, blah, blah. And, HBO's got game, blah, just on and on and on and on. And so it's like, well, now I'm subscribing to 10 different services just to get the handful of shows that I watch.
More than cable.
And it's going to be extremely expensive, which means now I'm in that position where I'm going to have to pick and choose. What do I watch first run? What do I wait for the DVD or Blu-ray on? What do I, and then if, as Glenn pointed out last week, if they get around to the point where they're going to start restricting what comes out and is available for home viewing because they want you to buy that service, well, now I'm really stuck in a pickle of, do I just give up on it altogether?
Yeah.
So it could have some very nasty backlash in that regard. I don't know that it will. I think they'd be very stupid to do that because obviously there's a lot of money to be made in home video. But that could be the writing on the wall in some cases to go that this is where they want to, force you to suckle at the nozzle that they're going to, give you, which is the only way you can get the product, versus something like cable, which is like, well, look at all these channels that we've got available.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know.
Be interesting to see what happens.
I had kind of hoped that with all these different streaming services that cable would see the writing on the wall themselves and say, okay, well, at some point we need to lower our prices.
Yeah,
maybe that's
I would hope
what
so.
will happen. People will come back to cable because you can get more options for a lesser price than buying all the separate streaming services. it's a brand new world out there, and I think that we're learning as we go, and I think that's ultimately what's happening. So, all right, thank you, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Good to hear from you. Of course, you can reach out to us on any form of social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Goodreads Book Club, and you can also send us feedback on our website. There's a contact us form or send feedback form, and fill that out and send it to us.
What's the address for that website, Keith?
That is travelingthevortex.com. And I feel like we should take this time to congratulate Chrissy.
Yes. Congratulations,
married this
Chrissy.
week.
Yay!
We hope you enjoy your honeymoon.
And she's at Disneyland now, and they're headed on a cruise, right?
Yeah.
After that. So that's fun.
We're joining her later this week to broadcast live from the cruise ship.
I wish. Oh, wow, I wish.
Oh, I
Surprise!
wish. Did you win the lottery?
Wish.
Put down some money on the Broncos. That's a lie.
And the odds weren't very good then. I mean, the odds,
the
odds were in their favor, but...
You just make a Hunger Games joke.
Yes. Did you see the meme going around for Lady Gaga?
No.
Did you see her performance?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So there was a meme that came out tonight and said, when you have to sing the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl at 6:30 and then go host the Hunger Games at 8 o'clock. Because of the way she was dressed.
Yeah.
She looked very much like Effie.
I could see that, yeah. I didn't think that while watching it, but I can see that now, yeah.
Speaking of Effie, did you hear the casting news that she is going to be...
Elizabeth Banks.
Elizabeth Banks is going to be the villain in the Power Rangers movie, the Queen...
Reboot?
I didn't watch, so I don't know.
The bad lady.
The bad lady.
Okay. I never watched Power Rangers.
I never watched it, but I remember seeing one clip of that woman going,
I think I
this
saw the
show's
movie.
silly. And
she will do a great job.
she will do a phenomenal job as that.
That's not going to make me go see the movie.
No.
Shall we move on to our review?
Yes. With Nell and I. In the late 1960s, two unemployed broke British actors, Withnail and a pill-popping burnout, and Marwood, who's slightly more together, take a vacation to the country. This pointed black comedy follows the actors' misadventures as the trip quickly turns into a nightmare, thanks in large part to Withnail's uncle.
Uncle Vernon.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun! I really liked it.
I liked it too.
I enjoyed it. I don't know how I feel about it.
I enjoyed it. I don't know how I feel about it.
I got to a point where I was like, what is going on?
Did you have subtitles on?
No.
I think that might have helped.
Like,
Really?
my
I
DVD
didn't
didn't have
find
subtitles.
myself-
You watch so much more British television
Well,
than we
I
do. I
suppose,
found
but-
even Mel was like, I have no idea what's going on.
Your subtitles worked?
No.
Oh.
That's why I
you
said
you wish you
I
had
wish
subtitles.
they had. Yes. Even I am saying, wow, I kind of wish I'd had subtitles for that one. No,
It's got 94% from both critics and the audience on Rotten Tomatoes.
Why not? It was a good movie.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm just kind of...
It was good.
That was where I got my synopsis, so I had that information readily available.
Probably the majority of them were British critics and British audience members, but I didn't know what to expect. In fact, I had Sean kept leading up to doing this for our Beyond the Doctor segment, and you could tell that Sean really wanted to do this story, and so I had never heard of this before. I take that back. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. And so going into it, I thought, okay, what is this? What could this possibly be? And I knew that Paul McGann is in it, and I didn't know until more recently that Richard E. Grant was the other heavy in it. And so we decided we're going to do it. And so I went into it going, okay, I'm not sure what to think about this or what to even expect out of it. So I went out and into it completely blinded and got done with it and quite enjoyed it. But it was one of those ones that I was like, what happened here? Who decides to? It's obviously a black comedy, but who puts together a story like this that really is? You talked about Friends, but this is more like. I mean, you didn't compare it to Friends, but it's more like Seinfeld. It's like almost an episode of nothing. It's a movie about nothing, except for it really does then kind of drive a point home at the end, I think.
Yeah, it really
but
does.
It just I went into this I don't even say trepidatious. Trepidatious is the word, because it wasn't like I
didn't
had
know what
any.
to expect.
Yeah, and it was completely nothing that I expected, and I had no barometer of how popular it was, of whether people liked it, whether it was, I had barely even heard of it up until a few years back, and it was just...
It was on Netflix there for a while.
Yeah, well, I
didn't
even know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. And so
I was
Sean
so
had
angry
been
'cause
pushing this, and I was like, I don't even know what to expect here.
I saw it was on Netflix and thought, oh, yay, this is going to work great for when we do Beyond the Dead, and then they took it away, and I was...
Have you seen the Criterion cover? The DVD cover? That
Yes.
was all I knew of it. So, listener, go look it up. And this is all I knew about the film.
Oh, gosh.
It looks like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, a little bit.
The British version of is what I went into it kind of expecting. Not quite, but a little bit.
Shades of.
I didn't realize it until looking at the Criterion website that apparently it's semi-autobiographical.
Oh, is that right?
Which kind of makes sense of why narratively it plays out the way it does.
Well, with Nell and I. You can't hammer down now whether it's with Nell and I or with Nell and I, because it was said both ways several times.
Or with Nall.
Or with Nall, yeah.
I think there were like 4 different ways they pronounced it through the entire movie.
So apparently Bruce Robinson must have had some sort of experience, because that's who wrote and directed this.
Yeah.
He must have had some sort of similar experience. And it took
I'm
place in
assuming he's
1969, right? I got that
Yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah.
because I remember it had a
1960s
kind of framed
at the very beginning.
kind of framed it at the beginning with the what do they call those little indicators or locators or whatever?
Yeah.
According to the excellent essay from Roger Ebert, who gave this 4 stars. Where to go? Robinson based the character of I on himself. Students of the film have learned from one glimpse of a telegram that the character's name is Marwood. It never appears in dialogue.
Or in credit, it's ... and I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking it would be so clever if at the end of this, when the credits run, it had Wisnell and then it had a thing for I. Even though he had a name in the movie, he had a name. I thought it'd be funny if it said and I, and it came up, and I felt so vindicated. That's so awesome. I don't care what Robert Ebert said. What did you think of the film?
Well, no, I was just replying that it was based on.
Yeah.
a
Well,
true
we already
story.
established that when Keith said that. What did you think of the film, Sean?
I liked it. I think it's a twofold thing. I don't drink, and so there's a lot of drinking culture.
That's not true. I've seen you drink.
Well,
you
I
just don't drink regularly.
I don't drink regularly, and I certainly don't drink to excess. And so there's a lot of drinking culture that happens in films that I kind of tend to miss out on. Just because I don't know. I've never been so blindingly stupid drunk that I can't find my car keys and get in a car and need a breathalyzer test when they inevitably stop me. You know, things like that I just kind of chuckle at because it's like, I don't get it. I don't, you know. So when you do a whole movie that's about the drinking, and to that extent, there's a part of me that's still kind of lost as to, like, why are you so adamant that this is the grand plan? What are you going to do today? I'm going to get drunk. Okay. And I is kind of stuck there with him doing it. However,
it very much feels like I's just kind of along for the ride through most of the film.
Yeah, I mean,
really calling him I.
That I think is what worked in a way, is because we've all known someone like this guy.
Oh yeah.
In my case, it was a former roommate that I did live with, and it wasn't the drinking so much as just that his...
It's something. There's always something that...
His personality.
The personality, and then you have something else in common also.
Yeah.
I never lived with you.
No.
He's talking about me.
Well, just you have those people in your lives that their personality is so grand and so over the top and so on, And when they walk into a room, they immediately wind up taking over the conversation, whether they intend to do it or not. It's just who they are, and you kind of get caught up and swept along with it. So when I latched onto that nugget, it's like, oh, I totally get this because I've been
that up
there
really early on too.
Then it just really flowed. And I really enjoyed it.
It reminded me of, in that aspect, of another film, and now I cannot think of it for the life of me. That's very similar. Of kind of this nameless character kind of gets swept up in this other person for a little while, and then kind of comes out the other side of it. Listener, if you know what I'm thinking of, let me know, because I don't now. But I thought of it while I was watching it. I was like, oh yeah, that's like that.
But yeah, I just watching with abject terror as Paul McGann is going, what and Richard E. Grant's just, there's no alcohol, I'm going to drink lighter fluid. And he's like, you
can't do that.
You can't do that. So he drinks it. And then he's like, do we have any antifreeze? And McGann's only response is, never mix your drinks. Because that's the logic of the situation. Never mind the fact that you're going to go blind.
Although, I sort of gathered it was almost a clever way of making it logical. Is what it was, because
if you're
I think he knew he wasn't. Yeah, exactly. When you're going to reason with somebody like that, you've got to reason with them on a level that they'll understand.
Yeah,
and I think that's what he was doing. I too, although more so, I kind of associated with the character of Marwood or in this as well, because I grew up. Well, I grew up, but I went to high school and college. Well, I was in college, but he wasn't. At the same time, with somebody that was very much like that, and it was like, I was about to say on the week every weekend, but it was during the week too. It was very much his goal was to go out, get schnockered. He was actually a performer or an actor. It wasn't so much in the sense that he was trying to get paid gigs as this was, but he was a community theater guy. He did stuff when we were in college. He did all these things. So he was very much the actor, and I was kind of the wannabe actor, and I was kind of the tag along, and just kind of I was halfway there to be along for the ride and do the things that he was doing, but I was also halfway there as his protector, kind of. Mm. I always felt like he needed me, because if he was by himself, he would have completely destroyed himself. He would have just completely gone into the bowels of hell. He'd have dragged himself down into very seedy, dark places. And so I was kind of a counterbalance for him. But it was very much that you're struggling against that type of personality, and you're along for the ride, and it's very difficult to keep from getting sucked into that world, because they're very, like you said, they walk into the room and they're the person that everybody wants to be with and be around and talk to. And there was...
Or call the cops on.
Yeah, there was honestly many times that we were just, 3 sheets to the wind and didn't know what we were doing. And then there was times where I was grounded enough to realize this is probably not a good situation for us. So I very much associated with the character in this. So that helped me a lot. Now, remove it from the UK, obviously, put in the Midwest, where there was very little to do but drink. That was pretty much how I came at it too. Is I thought I can really associate with this character, and maybe that's why I liked it so much as well.
Yeah, I had to tell because I don't think Mel enjoyed it as I know she didn't enjoy it nearly as much as I did, but I think it was for that reason. I kind of had to explain after the fact that I get where he's coming from because of this. Now, having said that, I think that's kind of where the audience comes in at it. That we all know somebody like Withnail. We all know somebody who's that over the top. Is not an innocent bystander. He's not necessarily being dragged into these things. That he's just as much...
Well, he is just by association. But he's as responsible for himself, for his own actions, as Withnail is.
Right. I mean, he's just... maybe a little higher functioning. It's maybe absolutely the best way to put it. And just watching them kind of go through the daily machinations of, blindingly drunk, hungover, what are we dealing with? And,
I got a job.
The first thing is Paul McGann puts on a kettle of tea and then leaves the house. It's like, what do you do? I don't care if your roommate's there. He's blitzed out in bed. He's asleep. And he leaves. and then he goes to the pub. And or maybe orders coffee or breakfast or whatever, and he gets paranoid and comes back home, and there's all the steam and everything because the kettle is completely boiled away.
Well, I think what I really appreciated by that setup is you got the impression that they, number one, had just come off of a bender, but number two, that it didn't just involve alcohol, that they were on they were on the tail end of other stimulants of some sort, and both dealing with it very poorly.
Yeah.
And so I like the aspect that it's set up that way, and when they're removed from that element of it and they get into just kind of the alcohol element of it, then it's, it
kind of calms down a little bit.
It does a little bit, and it almost seems a lot less, well, it's a lot less paranoid, but it becomes a lot less,
except for that one part.
I think if they had been on drugs as well as alcohol when they were on the holiday, they wouldn't have functioned. I mean, they would not have been able to survive, especially in that 2 or 3 days that they were struggling for food
on their own, despite the alcohol.
Cooking the chicken with some of the feathers still on, setting upright in the oven. It was things like that. And I also like the fact that
it's had great comedic moments in this entire film.
I like how they sort of each took a role in the household. How Paul McGann's character was Marwood it was definitely the cook. He prepared the foods, and that Withnail was kind of charged with going out and getting the required elements for things, even though originally Marwood does that because he goes out to get the wood because he's the I think you couldn't have sent Withnail to the next door neighbor to see if you could get wood. You couldn't have done that. So he does that functionally first. But then when they realize they have to live off the land, Withnail has to be the one that's the hunter and gatherer. And they fall into almost gender roles, old style gender roles, and It's neat how they do that, and they kind of pair them off in the sense that Withnail's the hunter and gatherer, and I is the cook and kind of the housekeeper. I love the fact that they kind of settled into these roles in order to survive, and that was the way they played that out. Of course, until Monty shows up, or Uncle Vernon, as we pointed out, it's the same actor that played Uncle Vernon in the Harry Potter films. Shows back up, and then they've got a whole new set of problems. But
they're well fed.
The other thing that I like about that is we go through this just almost uncomfortable, agonizing survivalist aspect of these two characters,
and more than blundering through the survival.
And then when Monty shows up, you're relieved. You're like, okay.
Oh, good, an adult's here.
Thank goodness, yes.
That's exactly it.
Somebody that's going to take care of them. They're going to be fed. They're going to have warmth. They're going to have clothing. They're going to, and the first scene you see is the next morning when they're set down to dinner and Monty has made a full breakfast and has everything organized and set in place, and you're relieved. It's just in time for the story to turn a whole new awkward. When we we don't find out then. We know that Monty has an eye for Marwood. It's just it's structured very well by starting off in the city, getting out of the city into the town, the survivalist aspect of bumbling through survivability, and then having to survive Uncle Monty. Marwood having to survive Uncle Monty. Being family, I think, was the benefit for Withnail.
The only thing I think that saved him.
Yeah.
It's so great that because you look at these guys and the plan is, your uncle has a summer house. Let's go bum a week off of we'll go on vacation. We'll have a week and we'll live off of him. And you're just looking at this going, no. It's just, no, there's no way you guys are going to survive outside the city.
I got the impression they didn't realize this was the kind of summer house it was. Like it was kind of a disrepair. That it was better stocked and better furnished and more modern.
Well, certainly from the way Monty lives in the city, he seems to be very well off. He has a very nice house or a flat, I suppose,
brownstone.
And so you kind of get the impression maybe the home away from home is as
just
nice.
As nice, yeah.
Yeah, no, I took one look at these guys and went, not going to make it. It doesn't matter. These
guys, matter if it was a nice place.
You could have set them up at the Holiday Inn. If it was the Holiday Inn in a small town outside of London, they would not have made it. It's just they're a fish out of water story. So they get up there and misadventures with a rainstorm. the beautiful English Highlands, and we get there.
Bags on their feet because they forgot them.
You know, the first rule of survival is, all right, I'm on, what does he say, fuel or you're on fuel and whatnot, and I'll, food and, Paul McGann divvies it up right off the bat. We've got to get this and this going. And there's no warmth, there's no heat, there's no, you've got to get it home to get warm. He says, well, the candle puts out more heat than that. And so the very first act that we get of survival is busting up furniture to put into the fireplace. As somebody who is driven by this reliance on drink would be want to do. It's just like, yeah, that's where we're headed. I'm surprised the house is still standing by the time Monty shows up.
Yeah.
Because, and then I loved his interactions when Paul McGann goes out to get food, and he's interacting with the local population and having to reassure them we're not from London. Like that's going to make anything better.
Yeah, like they really make that distinction.
But yeah, it's just there are a lot of the comedic elements are fantastic, and I think the timing and the chemistry.
You can really tell that the two of them got along really well because of the timing and the chemistry.
Yeah.
There were moments where, especially early on, I'm watching Richard E. Grant perform, and I'm just thinking to myself, he would make a great Batman villain.
Yeah,
Put him as the Riddler, he would, and at that age, he would have been phenomenal. That's the biggest praise I can give his performance.
Interesting.
Because he delivered it and committed to it so much that I didn't really see any other Richard E. Grant that I've seen before.
Interestingly
it's
enough,
so different.
If you watch Girls on HBO, the Lena Dunham series, he plays a character. He plays one of the female characters' uncle on there. Well, he pretends to be her uncle, I suppose. Plays a man she meets in the substance abuse center that she has checked into. And he's very much like this same character, only older. And so I saw a lot of parallels between those characters and went, okay, I'm already familiar with this Richard E. Grant. So it was quite interesting to see that he's able to pick up and do that type of character again.
Or maybe he's done more of these roles that we just don't know about, and he gets typecast as that guy.
I wonder now retroactively if he got typecast in Girls because of his role in Whitnell and I.
His name doesn't happen to be Whitnell, does it?
No, I don't believe so.
That would be awesome if it was the same character.
Yeah. I want you to come back. Oh yeah, I can do that. I was really struck. This is going to sound really strange and probably a little stupid. Since I've met Paul McGann, I was really struck with how tall Richard E. Grant is.
I was struck by that too.
The two of them standing together, and I was like, whoa. And I know Paul McGann is a little bit shorter. I mean, he's, I have a photo of him on my wall. I know how tall the man is. But Richard E. Grant is like taller than me, I think.
Huge.
I had no idea he was that big. And it in a weird retroactive kind of way now, it just kind of lends this added amount of gravitas to that opening scene in Schalke when the Doctor walks out of the TARDIS, because now I know how tall he is. He's just, there he is.
Very foreboding and very...
I found it interesting at the very beginning, his coat was almost very similar to Schalke Doctor's coat, I thought.
And the leather one that McGann wears almost, that scene
like
when he puts it on and he goes outside wearing just the coat and his boots... When they get out to and it's like, that's almost his Big Finish Doctor look.
Yeah,
it's
his dark
the
eyes
same
costume.
color. We were totally stretching for things there, but I love the fact that Richard E. Grant committed so over the top, wholeheartedly to. I mean, he never breaks character once. Everything that Withnail does,
neither of them do.
Yeah. I mean, it just there's a logic to it. We may not get it, but there is there's a method to it. And then poor McGann's character is just kind of wrapped up in that maelstrom and has to ride it out. Even though he's you can see almost that he's thinking to himself, "I put myself in this situation."
Yeah,
but he's too dedicated to him to really do much with it, other than ride it out. And allow things to take their course.
Jasper is his name on Girls. And this is us an aside, but according to Wikipedia, he's going to show up in Game of Thrones Season 6.
Ooh.
Now, that's according to Wikipedia. So.
Withnail did talk an awful lot about changing his name.
He became Jasper.
Maybe he became Jasper. Jasper Thorne.
He'd be a lot older now, because that took place in the 60s, even though the film was in 87 or 88, something like that.
87.
87. The inevitable ride down the highway coming home.
I'm making time. I'm making time.
Maybe it's cliche. I don't know, but I couldn't expect that you weren't going to have this character drive a car at some point in time in this.
Well,
movie.
they set it up with the first time in the car. Yeah.
There's a gun on the mantle that's going to be fired before we get to the end. So he's got this a doohickey thing to pass a urine test. And then the cop pulls him over. Of course, all I could think of was, hey, look, it's a TARDIS on wheels. It's a big blue bus with a light on top. It's kind of boxy. And they pull him over and stop him. And I kind of kept waiting for, okay, here it comes. Any moment now, we're going to, see how this works. And no, he gets thrown in the pokey and taken off. And
we see how it doesn't work.
then it shows up.
Back up, though. The beauty of that is the fact that Danny, the drug guy, the drug dealer, has sold him this, essentially. And he asks him, does it come with instructions? And then in the car on the way to Holiday, he's describing what this device is, and he says, according to the instructions, and there's this handwritten instructions that Danny apparently has actually supplied with the bottle.
Probably just wrote for him.
And then we have all this time in the country where that is completely forgotten.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to do with it. Until he gets arrested, and he's in the police station standing behind the room divider, and the guy catches him, and he grabs it, and it's like squirting out. I thought that was so well framed, because you'd completely forgotten about this silly bottle.
And I really liked, jumping back a little bit, the bit where they go into town to buy the galoshes, and they'll get completely drunk, and the way they were acting in that restaurant was just, especially, kind of that. To me, it felt like Paul McGann was really embracing the character even more than he had been previously, and really getting in on the fun of everything. I just really appreciated that. We're millionaires, and we're going to buy this building. And
sort of embellishing their stories.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because that's something that Withnail did a lot. He would embellish himself in stories, and it was very much...
It was nice to have that role reversal in that scene.
He picked up
I think that's what I liked about that.
It's funny, because that scene in particular, I think, is the one that really illustrates how ill-suited to just functioning in society these two guys are. Well, is that, Uncle Vernon has shown up, or Monty, and he's giving you money. Go buy boots. You need a good sturdy pair of galoshes if you're going to go about the countryside. All right, let's go to the pub. No question. We'll tell them there was a
convention.
Need boots.
They've got bags. They put bags
bags over their feet. Right? There wasn't even there was no debate. It was just to the pub, and they walked across the street and into the bar. Yep. That was it.
The ending was the only way the movie could end, but it was also kind of tragic and sad at the same time.
It was really.
Was anybody taken aback when Paul McGann, they cut to him and he'd cut his hair?
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't look like Paul McGann anymore. What happened?
At some point in time,
he's so cleaned up and everything.
You have to realize that certain individuals are not good for you.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you get a job opportunity too. I mean, it takes you different directions.
And I suspect that at that moment for that
it seemed sadder for Withnail than I.
I think
the way they filmed it and the way it was
very much so, yeah.
It was a little bit of both, because I think I was kind of, as Glenn alluded to earlier, he was coming to the realization that he's not going to be there on the next adventure or misadventure, and he's not going to be able to prevent him from winding up face down in the gutter in that personal hell of whatever bad thing, but that he just can't, that he has to move on. And Withnail not only recognized that, I think kind of maybe wanted to hold it against hm, but knew that he wouldn't.
Yes.
Whatever is going to become of me without you, even though it was not spoken, it just kind of was there. And, he tried to put the happy face on and, I'll walk you to the thing and we'll drink a bottle of wine as we walk to the subway that we stole from Monty, and it's like, no, I'm good, really.
Well, I think that's fun. That's suddenly the realization that the character says, I can't continue on like this. I can't continue to be the support for this person. I have to live my own life. And I think he stayed with Withnail because he felt guilty, and he felt like Withnail was very destructive to himself and could have. And I think it's at that point that he realized that no matter what he could do, he would continue to live his life as Withnail has, and he had to kind of separate from that. And I think the realization is the whole point when he lets Danny stay. Well, he doesn't realize the gravity of the situation that Danny was there when the landlord came by, and they're getting evicted because they weren't signing the checks, is what they kept describing it as. And so I got the impression that the landlord wasn't getting the checks. Danny had completely ruined it for them with the landlord, and Withnail was getting stoned. And I think that was kind of the realization of where Marwood's life had kind of come. And I think that was the realization that I've got this great new job. I've got this, lead
I've got a
now in
chance
play.
to,
It's not just a part; it's the lead. This is the time that I've got to separate myself from this destructive behavior.
And the way Withnail was written, it could have easily been he didn't even realize that he had disappeared and gone from his life. But I really like the fact that he recognized it and was going to be sad and miss him, because those sort of characters, it could very, very easily be, where'd that one guy go?
Yeah,
I'll just continue going on with what I was doing. But it helped have that nice emotional connection between the two of them.
It could have very easily crossed over into self-parody. He could have become the funny drunk. He could have become Arthur. He could have become, he could have been the sad drunk. He could have been, but he's not. He never once breaks character from being this over-the-top, slightly belligerent, angry at the world guy who is also drunk through the whole thing. And that just really, worked for who he was. And I think the other part of that I liked is at the end when I comes to that realization that this is my chance that I have to take. We'd gotten anger from him before at Withnail. We'd gotten the spats of, I can't believe you did this, or how dare you leave me with this person, or, But they always blew over, and it was never a genuine, I don't feel, he was genuine when he was yelling at him about why are you driving, but he was genuine about with all of them. But, there was never I don't think there was ever a question of this is the straw that broke the camel's back, and I'm angry with you. And we didn't get him dragging out a soapbox and jumping up on top of it going, you have to change your life and blah, blah, blah. You never got that moment. He was never going
to be that preachy guy.
Right. It would never do any good with Withnail anyways. Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that I liked about it is when that realization came, the absurdity of what had happened with the landlords and Withnail getting stoned, and I've got this. And the next scene is he's there, his room has been cleaned out, he puts on the hat, his hair has been cut, he's cleaned up, and he walks out. And we never get that. We never get that moment, which would have made it, I think, a different movie. It would have been, this cascade of self-destruction and then ultimately the implosion.
Right.
And I didn't want to see that.
No, I didn't want to see that. It's left very good. It's left wondering what would become of Withnail without Marwood. And so I think that it ends on the perfect note of mystery. You know, what happened to him? We don't get that resolution, but we also don't get that complete self-destruction.
Yeah, and I like the way that it ends. Is that not only does Marwan go off to do his thing, but with now has this great Shakespeare soliloquy at the end from Hamlet. What a piece of work is man. Is it Hamlet? It's Hamlet, and it's just he just nails it. And it's like, my God, this guy's a great actor. If only he was sober more often, he could probably get some great jobs. And it's one of those times that, for however many times you hear that in film, to know that he's really talking about himself. Oh, yeah. What a piece of work is man. And then he goes on his way, and that's just that's it. That's all you can get out of it, which is great. I did not know. I knew this was a big deal. You talked about this a little bit earlier, that, the culture and the kind of the fandom that have built up around this movie. And it's one of those that, going back to what Keith said about the cover, working in video, this is just a cover I've been aware of for a really long time. It's kind of a haunting image.
Oh, yeah,
the non-Criterion one has the dartboard in the same kind of jagged font and this very strange Fear and Loathing kind of Polaroid, that's on the dartboard that's kind of got things thrown at it. And I'd always been entranced by it. I'd been walking by on the shelves or seeing it. It was just like, what is this movie about? And it wasn't until years and years and years and years later that I went, oh my God, Doctor Who's in this. And so that kind of put it on the radar for me, that it was like, I'm going to have to watch this at some point, and just never did. So I was really happy to, finally get it on there. But this film, for being a small independent movie, is huge over in England, and the dialogue is still quoted. It's one of those that has reached,
it's cult status.
It's very big cult status. And I mean, some of the dialogue is great when you have things like, I can't get my boots on when they're hot. that scene, obviously you kind of need that in order for that to make sense, but I liked, these are the kind of windows faces look in at. And my thumbs have gone weird. So it's, I think my thumbs have gone weird. I think I'm going to start adopting that one myself.
All right. What we got coming up on the schedule, Sean?
Well, next week is the big week. Next week's the week we dip our toes into the, unfortunately, very deep abyss that is missing episodes. And so we're going to be watching The Crusades, for Friday Night Who. Again, as mentioned by Glenn last week on the show, that if you have any version of The Crusades that features all of the audio, you can boot that up and watch along with us. We will be doing the Loose Cannons version, because that's the one that we have access to.
Well, inadvertently, this was the best one to start with, because you do have all of it available to you on the Lost in Time Hartnell disc, and because it is there in audio form. So the two missing episodes are there in audio.
Well, you think I didn't plan that?
Sure you did, Sean.
I am nothing if not consistent. But so we'll be doing that for Friday Night Who. And as always, you're please welcome to join us. If you don't know what Friday Who is, we watch Who every Friday night at midnight, and we tweet along and say funny things. It's not quite Mystery Science Theater. Sometimes it's just, oh, I love this bit, and sometimes it's, oh, look at that. So
sometimes we make fun of it.
Sometimes we make fun of it.
It depends.
But it's all out of love. It's never malicious.
Oh, yeah, never.
So we'll be doing that, and then having kind of a big discussion about it next week with the episode and kind of our take on the reconstruction and what has been done to it. And, of course, we also have the novelization that we'll be covering as well. So if you haven't started that yet, you can still get through it this week. It'd be a brisk read. It moves at a pretty good pace.
It does. It's only like 8 chapters.
160-some pages.
63, I think.
But you should probably start now if you are interested in that. And
I read it in a couple of days, and if I can read a book in a couple of days, most readers can read it probably knock it out in a day.
And then more schedule updates will be hitting the feeds soon, since we have just hammered out a few things coming forth. Speaking of coming forth, if you are in the area, specifically Topeka, Kansas, please come out and support Empower Comic Con, which is going to be going on the weekend of the 20th and the 21st. I think those are the dates of February. It's a Saturday, Sunday. And we will be there hosting a panel. And you also have the chance to meet, among others, Linda, I keep saying Linda Carter. It's not Linda Carter.
Lindsay Wagner.
It's Lindsay Wagner. Thank you. Who is coming to our fair city. So please come out and support us in that.
All right. Well, if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.